Zerlath on a drive stream. It is Monday. I am already going to be late. I can't believe how long it took me to put myself together today, and I really did not want to kick my ass to be on time after I realized how much time I had spent getting ready. So, we are living under the subtext of war, right? We're living under the subtext of domestic warfare. And that's really what's bothering everybody on an unconscious level, and has been bothering everybody since the pandemic, because the manner in which we never re-infrastructured while continuing to make threats was a bit scary, right? There was a complete disconnect between the strength of the government and the strength of the American people, and how they're sacrosanct. What's up, Nick? So in short, this weak country doesn't have the strength of force. It can do terrible things, but it's going to fail. And the one place that it may not fail is itself. It can destroy itself, right? And that's when you have civil war. And we're not going to destroy ourselves. But people who don't care much for the existence of our world will let us fuck up badly enough to be like unaliving yourself, right? Germany chose to unalive itself by trying to march into the Soviet Union, right? One could say that perhaps he was unaliving the nation well before that, and it was only obvious once such a harebrained invasion tactic was established, right? And it becomes incredibly suspicious when a nation just goes that way, right? I don't because I don't care about, you can blame everything on Hitler. Hitler was a manifestation of the will of that fucking people, right? So it was the will of the people. It maybe wasn't their will a week before the plan was announced, but they were willing once the plan was announced, even if they were lied to about the plan. It's just who they are, what they wanted to do. They rationalized it. It made sense to them. Wait a minute. Hey, guys, we Germans are great, right? Oh, we're the best. But don't you think the Russian Empire under the Soviet Union's a bit much for us right now? We got a war on two fronts already. Nobody fucking said that, right? In the officer class, right? We have this imagination of what it's like from Hollywood. Let me tell you something. It was like that in certain parts, but they don't have that. Just because they established their system of control doesn't mean their system of control was comprehensively effective. We just know what was comprehensively effective, which may have been a very small part of the whole. You gotta remember, the German people assumed that there wasn't that these rumors of what was happening to the Jews were lies, and that they were all just being deported to Israel, and that nobody was suffering because we're not bad people, right? So what the German deep state did is very different than what the German people thought was going on. And notice how they made that same equivalency 8 years ago with our policy on deportations, right? And that they spun it because we had the transition centers that were securitized transition centers for whether you were breaking in or breaking out, and whatever you were, and you're trying to build an entire hallucination around the way you just have to do that if you're going to have that kind of policy. That like, once the press was in there looking at what the fuck was in these fucking facilities, it was just like they had to make a big deal out of the fact that fencing existed. It's just like, oh my god, there's fencing, they're locked in. You already knew they're locked in. There had to be fencing. You knew there was going to be fencing going in there. Everybody would have assumed there would have been fencing, right? But Auschwitz had fencing. So anyway, what's my point? War. We're not at war, literally, right? But if your mindset hasn't been we're at war since 2020, then that's probably the reason why you're feeling defeated. You know, you are defeated in your mind, and those of you who are defeated in your mind can easily be conquered, and all your leaders have to do is make a stupid move and lose a fight. And now we have to deal with occupational forces, and we may have to fight them, and we may have to fight our government at the same time, because they may then immediately surrender by the time we pose a resistance, and now they're standing against us. Because that was all the plan, because the assets had been transferred ahead of time, because it was just a ruse to rob us. You know, this is your Red Dawn, right? You know, we're asking ourselves, is tomorrow Red Dawn, right? Do I wake up and some ally of our enemies is here? And everything within the infrastructure of what makes our world is destroyed. What's everyone's issue with that fella? I've only vaguely heard of him. Well, that's an interesting question, Bobby. I've mentioned a lot of things. Could you perhaps stop using pronouns and extract some context? Because, as you imagine, you're asking a question to a man who's driving his car and doesn't know when you said that precisely. And I love cats and dogs says hi. Alright, so effectively everything that's been happening since 2020 has been a phase-by-phase plan by the year to transform this nation from what it was as this absurdist playground into a more serious country, right? Because we stopped living up to higher ideals because at the time we weren't wise enough to overcome a lot of our terrible traits that were coming along with the ideals, right? You know, a lot of people to this day, they'll never let go of certain aspects of history that don't apply anymore. The 3/5 of a person clause is not applicable to you on a humanitarian level if you are of slave descent in this country. Because with the 13th Amendment and the 14th Amendment, it nullifies the 3/5 of a person clause. You don't just erase it, right? Just like we have the prohibition of alcohol as an amendment to the Constitution. It's still there, but then there's a later amendment to the Constitution which undoes that amendment, right? One could say that the height of fundamentalism in this country was the 1920s. We had the Roaring Twenties, was this opposition to what was on the other side, like the religious Dark Ages, right? And so the character of those people was kind of appalling to us looking back in history, right? And this is why we don't see a tremendous amount of constitutional amendments being created in this country, is because typically we don't have one extreme or the other become a dominating conversation, if you will. But now we do, right? Now there's a wing of the Republican Party that will not be mocked the way the Tea Party wing of the Republican Party was mocked. And we're going to have to deal with all of their ideas coming in. Some of which are going to be good ideas. Some. Once you're in your camp, it becomes very hard for you to dismiss and accept a lot of things under nuance, especially when there's media pressure. Right? And all of this perpetuates the idea that we're still connected to a time where you don't have to change. Right? And I think a lot of people that don't want to change, they don't realize what they're missing. They don't. I think a lot of them have been conditioned to over-imagine what these changes can be, as far as who you kind of like become to other people, because typically before you go through any of these kinds of changes, you don't have the same sense of self as other people do. So your resistance is largely coming from the fact that you are being confronted with your lack of self-identity in the first place, right? And nothing challenges your sense of self like a traumatic group crisis in which your reaction finally viscerally breaks from the crowd, right? Because now all around you, you're looking, and it's just like you had completely the wrong idea of how everybody that you knew that gave you your sense of orientation was going to go this way, that you thought would definitely not be the way everybody would go. And and you start to actually break from them, and because you're breaking from that group, they have less psychic hold over you, and you wouldn't know who to relate to. You wouldn't know how to make like new friends, and you're really forcing yourself out of one world. And then you got nothing left but to look back at yourself. And then this brings up all the questions of your sense of self, etc. What's up, guys? I see Violence, I see Theo, I see Medusa back in black. Hey, what's up, guys? Good to see all of you. If you haven't checked out Stein Fox's channel, the Greyhorn Pagans podcast, I was just on yesterday for I think about 2.5 hours or so. I did some live readings. You can check those out. And you can hit me up if you want a reading. Find me anywhere. You can message me on social media or email me. Zerolath@yahoo.com. Zerolath@yahoo.com. Hit me up. $80 for half an hour. $120 for an hour. Those are my rates. So, as the wealth in the industry, right? The wealth in the industries that you used to know, that you used to go your lives by, is going by the wayside. It's going to come. It's going to not like be there with big financial whatever for most. Right? It's not going to get dished out economically like it used to. Because the people aren't buying into it. And that affects everybody in the weak world. I kind of find it interesting how everybody says they're woke, also happens to be weak. They're emotionally weak, physically weak, obviously, psychically weak. The woke are weak. And they're going to basically end up being in a state of misery because they don't know how to find their sense of self. Their sense of self, put it to you this way. I'm working my 40 hours a week right now, like anybody else could or would, for a fair amount of money for a low skill kind of job in this warehouse as such. Because of how I have put my life together, I found this job. This works for me for who I am and where I'm at, what I'm doing, right? Because I get to take it easy. I get to listen to stuff in my ear Um, I'm largely self-motivated. I'm not bothered by anybody other than co-workers who don't really bother me at all. Um, it's great. And so, because I push myself in my personal life harder than what my jobs ask of me, it makes it very easy for me to be there in a job. And this isn't even a high stress. This is about the lowest stress job that involves carrying some heavy boxes that one could ask for. With the exception of a little bit of heavy box carrying, there ain't nothing to this damn job. Maybe a little bit of climbing up or getting hoisted up to top shelf stuff in the warehouse. That's about it. They haven't even let me touch the forklift. That's okay. I don't even think I need to. I think they're pretty much all set with their rotation of guys in that respect. And I'm hired from an agency anyway, right? So like I don't work for this warehouse. This warehouse sent me here. And if I didn't have other goals in mind, I might commit myself to this warehouse. But for now, it's for the season. Because I want to start jumping into construction in the spring. And right now, I need to get my economic footing in place so I can spend the money on the larger construction course. I've got the smaller construction course under my belt. I need the larger one now to be fully panned out for the jobs. That's right, Theo. Yep, spiritually dead. Right. And, and I just think that, with the way roles in society work, and I think the way that, we watched, people try to unnaturally force the change of their lot in life. It confuses the exploitative conspiracy that is already there to destroy you in your lot in life, and then understanding that your lot in life doesn't have to fucking suck, right? I think that because I think slavery can happen at all three levels of the caste system, right? Just like there's a tripartite caste system, in the oversimplification of how our ordering principle works, right? You've got the thralls, the Khars, and the Jarls. And the thrall is what we call the slave, and all slaves are thralls, but I don't think all thralls are slaves. I know I'm a thrall. I'm going to work right now. Somebody asked me to be there at a time. That's all thrall relationship. But that's fine. I have to fucking, figure out my thing for changing from a thrall to a Khar. If that makes sense. Because I think that now, I think that there's more self-fulfillable fluidity in the way our world is structured, as opposed to what it may have been a long-ass time ago, because we were slower then. right? Our minds were slower, our lives were slower. We had less to think about as well, as far as, like, deep and diverse intellectual knowledge to have at your disposal, right? Like, your village didn't have a fucking local library, let alone an occult bookshop. There was no such thing as an occult bookshop. You just would have been burned to the stake because you had books. It was the Dark Ages, people, right? And we have struggled to find the chance to have the world that we thought we were going to have like 4 some odd years ago, where we seemed to have a grasp on what everybody's grievances were, and we felt pretty damn close to bringing all those grievances to a bloody end, without, I'm saying bloody end, like without the British accent, but you know, a bloody end, you know, just the way they say bloody in British, which is just fun to say. But anyway, you feel that the quickening is almost over. No, it's not. It's not over. It's not over at all. It's you're feeling your sense of finally having such a strong grasp on what they're doing and how they're doing it, and how that matters to you, that you're finally through it. Listen, man, there are people, like, trust me, people that are paying attention to what's going on right now, you know, they're having a nervous fucking breakdown. So, you've been begging people to, quote, wake up. Great. They have now woke up into a living fucking nightmare with no fucking guidance. Where's their fucking Virgil through the 9 fucking circles of hell that they're experiencing under the profound revelations that their simple minds from their simple lives, it's, you know what you're gonna do? You're gonna fucking shut down, because you can't just live every fucking single day like that. You know, you're, you know, like, you haven't even, like, the seed doesn't even have the self-awareness that it's the potential of the great fucking tree yet, right? So the seed is sitting there under its own personal tortures, right? It doesn't want to be out in the sun and the rain, because it also has to be out amongst the monsters that want to destroy it, and it's just a seed. It doesn't even have arms and legs to run away and fight back. It's just a seed, right? So these people that are just seeds of who their soul is supposed to be in this life are going to go back to an unconscious state, because they don't know where to go with the hell of all of this. Because it's an improper way to introduce someone to what really matters. You know? Because the only point in waking people up is if you are also freaking got them going already on a path of knowing themselves. Because if they don't know themselves, knowing about, you know, reptilians making secret deals with occult organizations to rule you like cattle, yada yada yada, the whole story we tell ourselves, is just going to fucking destroy them. And that's if they even believe in the woo factor. For some of us, we're only capable of having a goddamn conversation about maybe Nazis in Antarctica, and everything else is just child's play, right? Anyway, alright, I gotta rush in there, because normally I'm not 20 minutes late to work. It's usually like 5:10, and I don't want to make it any worse. So my point is that this is also the level of consciousness that is not there to be useful as part of whether it's your government's military or just people on the street that you would trust as a militia together. You're not there. You're not there. It's ugly because everybody wants to be a child forever. This country wants to be 24-hour Disneyland, and the infantile paralysis of the mind is going to be the end of these people. All right. Catch you later.